All right, so we're going to look at a sectional chart here, and we're looking at the Tampa Bay area, kind of in a blow up here. We're going to cover some of the basic things that you're looking at here on this map. And the first thing that I want to go over is the difference between controlled and uncontrolled airports and some of the basic class concepts. So, what you're looking at here is a smattering of different airspaces and airports. So here are your uncontrolled airports, and the way we notice or the way we can tell the difference between a controlled and uncontrolled airport is to look at the coloring. And the ones that I'm showing you arrows here are your uncontrolled. They are a magenta color. And we have three main um, magenta colored or uncontrolled airports here in the Tampa Bay area, a little bit bigger than some. Normally, you would see these as a magenta colored like circle. If they're smaller airports, they don't show the actual runways. Here you can see they're kind of drawn out, and you can kind of tell the direction of the runways here. They're kind of small, but you get the point. You can see the layout. You notice the one over here on the left, Clearwater Air Park, has just one runway, and you can tell that because you can look at it. It's drawn out for you. Whereas the one down here on the lower center is the Peter O. Knight, what they call Knight Airport, and you see there's a couple of runways, the same as Tampa Exec in the upper far right-hand corner over here has two runways. So those are your uncontrolled airports. They do not have a tower. You can fly your drone closer to them as long as you're not getting in the way of and you're yielding to other airport traffic, staying out of the way of piloted aircraft. So the next thing I want to show you is these dashed lines. If you look at the arrow here at the bottom, you see here at MacDill Air Force Base, they have a dashed line all the way around. That is because they are a Class Delta airspace. And again, D, Delta for dinky. MacDill really isn't a dinky airport when you think about the size of their runway. It's huge. But they are a Class Delta for a few different reasons. One, you can see they're nestled close to Tampa International Airport, just above it, in the center of the page there. And Tampa's really controls this whole airspace, so it's not really a need for them to have anything much larger than a Class Delta. And if you look at military airports around the country, I don't know that I've seen any that they themselves are much more than a Class D. But some of our other civilian Class Ds in the area are over here at St. Petersburg Clearwater International Airport. And over here at Albert Whitted. Now you can't see Albert Whitted because it's slightly off the page here, but it is down there just off the page. And you can see that it's nestled up against, if you follow the dashed line, follow it around to where it meets up with MacDill, you see that there's a flattened side there where the two are kind of pressed together. MacDill's Class Delta and Albert Whitted's Class Delta kind of pushed together there. So that goes to prove that there isn't any of these that in the Tampa Bay area that are complete circles. That it said 4 nautical mile radius, but in this case, on one side of MacDill, it being pressed up against the Class Delta from Albert Whitted, it's not going to be exactly 4 nautical miles there. It's a little bit less. If you go back up and you look at St. Pete Clearwater International, you see that as you go around the dashed line there that we're pointing at, it comes into intersection with a darker blue line that we're going to talk about in a minute over near Tampa International Airport, and it kind of bumps into the Class Delta and takes up a little bit of the space. So on that side, it's not going to be perfectly, 4 nautical miles out to the edge over there either. Just a hair shy of that in that area over the water in the Tampa Bay. So another thing we talked about with class deltas is they're typically 2,500 foot tops. So they don't go above that. But let's go back over to MacDill. You guys are familiar with where MacDill is now. It's just down below the Tampa International Airport, and it was our first arrow we put up. You notice that there's a little box down there right near the edge of the golf course, if you can see that. At the bottom of the landmass there where MacDill Air Force Base is located, there's a little box with a -12 in it. I want you to keep that in mind, and then I want to go over to where Albert Whitted is. It was our last arrow that we put on the map, and you can see there's a ticketed box down there that has a 15 in it. See if you can spot that. And then let's go up to St. Petersburg Clearwater International, and you see there's a box there in the upper left-hand corner where it says Cove K, and it has a 16 in it. All right, so what those boxes are telling you is the top of that class Delta in that area. So in the area where you see the 16, notice it's to the right of the dark blue line that's kind of cutting in half, cutting a little bit more than half, but cutting down the middle of the class Delta circle that we have there. On that left-hand side, it is saying that that class Delta on the left goes up to and includes 1,600 feet. Or, no, I'm sorry, it goes up to and does not, it goes up to right at 1,600 feet. So you can, yeah, it does include, I'm sorry, I'm going out of my mind. But it does include the 1,600 feet. So you can be in class Delta airspace there all the way up to and including the 1,600 feet. The one there at Albert Whitted that says 15, that means it goes up to and includes 1,500 feet in that area of the chunk that's not involved with that dark blue line. So that left-hand side over there where the 15 is located, that is to the left of the dark blue line coming through it, that is at 1,500 feet. And if you go over to the class Delta at MacDill Air Force Base, you see this is the one that I was just thinking of. This went through my mind off for a second. The -12 means it goes up to but does not include 1,200 feet exactly. So their entire class Delta goes up to 1199. So 1,199 feet. As soon as you hit 1,200, you're now in a class Bravo from out of Tampa, which we're going to talk about that here in a second as well. But it's that minus sign that makes it not including. The 16 over at St. Pete Clearwater International says it can go up to and includes 1,600 feet. The one at Albert Whitted says it goes up to and includes 1,500 feet, but the one at MacDill up to but not including the 1,200th foot. All right, so let's get that out of there. Let's take a look at the class Bravo around Tampa. Right, so there's Tampa. It's a blue runway. As opposed to the magenta color ones, this is a controlled airspace, and you can see that again at St. Petersburg Clearwater International. You see it over here at MacDill Air Force Base. Those are controlled. They have towers, so those are airspaces that we can't go into without prior approval, whether they be Lance or if we go on Drone Zone and apply for a waiver. But Tampa's up here. It's one of the biggest blue airports. You see it has 3 runways, carries international aircraft and all that stuff. So that's why it has to have this dark blue line around it. That dark blue line says, hey, this is class Bravo airspace. And if you notice right up above the arrow end of that red arrow, you see that there's a fraction there where there's a number over some letters. Well, that number is 100, and we always add 2 zeros to these numbers, so it's really 10,000. and then the SFC stands for surface. So that class Bravo and that sort of a circle there is from the surface up to 10,000 feet. Now, on the other side of that class Bravo circle, you notice it's not really a circle. First of all, it's offset to the northwest a little bit. So even if there wasn't this flat side on the southeast side of that class Bravo, the whole circle has been shifted up and to the west. But on the opposite side, the southeast side, you see there's a flat side of it. And that's because they had to make room for Peter O. Knight traffic to get in and out of there, and other traffic that's flying in that area. It's just so congested. There wasn't, a need to really close that off there. If you notice, both of their north-south runways out of Tampa have some of the longest area there. It doesn't really bother that little quadrant offside. But again, it's not round, and this is some more proof when we're talking about class Bravos being whatever shape the FAA decides they need to be. You're seeing it there. They just, they designed this for the traffic patterns that they have for the large aircraft that are coming in and out of there, and that's what you're seeing. So, surface to 10,000 feet inside of that circle. Let's move out a layer. Let's move out a layer. And now you can see that there's a second blue line. And if you follow that blue line up to the top, you've got to kind of imagine, because we didn't show it here in the graphic, but connect that to the other side where it kind of has a circle kind of pattern to it. And you can see that that class Bravo goes all the way down to the end of the page at the bottom. It really continues all the way out, follows the bay all the way out into Egmont Key area, which doesn't show up on here, but it's quite a distance yet off of what you see here in this map. So then if you follow that blue line that we're pointing to now, all the way out to the left and down, you see that it kind of overlaps St. Pete Clearwater International, and then it kind of goes out to the bay. Well, what is the surface and the altitude? Obviously, it's like an upside down wedding cake here, and it kind of goes out and up, but it's like a shelf. So if you look above the arrow out in this second area, you see that there's a fraction, 100 over 12. Let's go ahead and add the two zeros to those numbers, and you get that the shelf starts at 1,200 feet, and it goes up to 10,000 feet. All right, so let's go out one more layer, and you see we're in yet another layer. And that layer, if you notice, goes up off the page to the top, and if we were to zoom out here, you would see that that would go way up north and then kind of jaunt over to the right, to the east, and then it would come back down on the outside of the right side of our page. So it's really huge, really big area. But how do you figure out, what's the altitude in that area? So if you follow all of that space between the lines, kind of like the water would flow in a river between those two lines, you notice it kind of comes out. It gets a little fatter as we go down. And if you continue to go down the page, right outside of the Albert Whitted class Delta, you're going to see another fraction down there. And this one is 100 over 30. So it's near the bottom of the page on the right hand or the left hand side of the page there. You'll see 100 over 30. Right above it, they have the words Pinellas Park. So we're going to add our zeros to that 100 over 30 and make it 10,000 and 3,000. So this is another shelf. The area there over Pinellas Park and over Clearwater Air Park, which we pointed at earlier as one of our uncontrolled airports, all of that area, all the way to the top, up above Palm Harbor and everything, that whole area starts at 3,000 feet and goes up to 10,000 feet. So every place under 3,000 feet in that area is not controlled by that Bravo airspace. And that's where you have to think three-dimensional when you're looking into these maps. Let's go back to our airspace, the second area that was 1,200 feet. And if you follow between the two blue lines like water would if it was flowing through there, you notice it gets into this big area down here in Tampa Bay. And you can see another fraction, another 1,200 with a 100 over the top of it, just to the right of MacDill Air Force's airspace. It's between the flag there that says Yankee next to it and the flag that says chemical plant. So if you see that 1,000 or 100 over 12, that's 1,200 feet shelf up to 10,000. They're just kind of reminding you. If you go straight up the map from there, you'll run into another one up there in a very congested area near the top of the page. You'll see another fraction kind of hidden in there that says 100 over 12. So they're kind of telling you that this whole area, everything between those lines, unless you run into another thick blue line, that area, all considered, is starting at 1,200 and going up to 10,000. And that is what I wanted to show you on that map for now. In our next map, or in our next video, we're going to start tackling what's there on the ground and what are all the different things on this map trying to tell us. We're going to start out with cities and places, populated places, but that's for the next video. Until then, happy studying.